Jacob deGrom's season is over. He's got to have Tommy John surgery. Your initial thoughts on that and what it could do to the market?
Yeah, and I know a couple places, our show sponsor, pulled the AL West right when this got announced. I think with the idea of, I think there's always like a hypersensitivity to breaking news. If you, especially if you run a recreational sports book, where you're just kind of like seeing where the market is on everything, and that's how you set your prices. You're gonna, even something that shouldn't actually impact anything, you're like, whoa, and you just like pull everything right away, because like then you can just like think about it for a second if you want to reopen it. Does this like significantly impact a ton of stuff? No. For me, there are two things that are probably affected. One, the sell of the Texas Rangers, who are one of the surprising teams in Major League Baseball up to this point in the season. One of the ways you could sell them as a postseason contender is that, okay, they could build this big regular season record, incredible offense, Eovaldi's awesome, like you score a billion runs a game, that'll get you to the postseason. And then you have deGrom to start, game one or game two, whichever game Eovaldi doesn't start. Of the first series. Now you got two frontline starters. Maybe you make an addition at the trade deadline. Like there was a way this could play out that was like sellable, where it's like you could, as someone who bets, you could be like, okay, like the idea of Texas, maybe I don't want to bet them to win the World, but like that makes sense. That's something that can happen. And what you do when deGrom's now going to obviously not have a chance to return for the postseason is you just completely ruin that idea. Like that's like, what is Texas in the postseason now? Like what frontline starters? Like, are they going to go trade for a guy when deGrom's already not playing? It kind of puts a weird spin on this season as like, okay, like what is a realistic ceiling for the team? What can they do? So postseason wise, yeah, like this was going to be like your front, like this is why you paid him all this money, because in the playoff series he'd start game one for you and he'd pitch a lot in the postseason. Can't happen anymore. Obviously hurts big time their ceiling to win the World Series. Can they still win the division is the second part of it, right? And part of it was like, we didn't really know when deGrom was going to come back anyway, and we didn't really know how effective he was going to be when he came back. And since he's been not playing, the team is unbelievable. They scored 900 runs every single game. So it's kind of like two different sides of the coin. The glass, or glass half full, glass half empty, I guess, to use a completely different analogy. It's like glass half full is, I think regular season team can still have a ton of success. I think Houston's incredibly vulnerable, and the other rest of the teams in the division are still live as well. The glass half empty is, okay, maybe you do win the division, but when you get to the playoffs, what are realistic expectations? And realistic expectations for me would be to lose early, and to a team with better frontline starting pitching.
They're eerily similar to, like, I'll use my hometown team, the Orioles, as far as starting pitching goes, because the Orioles have a lot of youngsters where they have more vets, but it's a lot of who's who, and really does any of these guys scare you would be the question once these teams, or if these teams get into the postseason. But I thought the Rangers kind of, right now, we'll see what they look like the rest of the year, kind of hit on some of the free agency pitchers that they brought in this past season. I just don't think it's enough to really help them win the division without deGrom. Maybe they could have rode that wave and kind of dealt with it and handled it. But now they're kind of in this place where even if they get in the postseason, I really don't believe in the frontline pitching the same way you said. And it's not like they have this unbelievable bullpen. I mean, their bullpen's okay, but it's not like, that you can overwhelm teams with that and try to outlast starting pitchers in the postseason. I just don't see that.
So Houston's still a favorite, despite the fact Texas has got off to a remarkable start. Is there like a new handicap for you with this news with deGrom now definitely out for the season in terms of how you want to attack the AL West, Jake?
I think for the regular season, they're still going to be basically okay. Like you said, they've done this all year already. We're going on 2 months without this guy now, and they've been fine. And they've been fine, too, with a large chunk of that being without Corey Seager, too, who just won AL Player of the Week, but he just came back, 10 days ago? Something like that. So I think Texas in the regular season is mostly going to be fine going forward. Nothing really changes at all. Like Ken mentioned it, we didn't know when deGrom was coming back. The theory was kind of after the All-Star break, maybe, and really just maybe for a tune-up for the playoffs, if at all, in the regular season, because the regular season was never really the point. The Rangers have had this AL West lead so far without having him, without having Seager for a lot of it. They've pieced it together. I think they'll be fine. I still think their rotation is good enough to get them to the end of the regular season. And even if they have to scrap with Houston and maybe even Seattle, if you want to throw them in there, which I kind of do, that they can get there to the end because John Gray's been really, really good. I don't know if he can keep it up, but he's been awesome. Nathan Eovaldi, I don't know if he can win AL Cy Young, but he's leading the pack right now. Dane Dunning's been great. We've been waiting for that regression. Hasn't happened yet. Maybe it just won't. I don't know. And they have other options too. Owen White's still at AA. He's awesome. Jack Leiter's now shown a huge improvement at AA. He's cut down the walks and the hits as well, and just his strikeouts are still unbelievable. So they have options, and it's the Rangers. They'll trade if they really feel like they need to. They'll go get a Dylan Cease, a Marcus Stroman, a Shane Bieber, a Blake Snell maybe even, because he's a free agent at the end of the year, and if San Diego falls out of it. Jack Flaherty maybe in that category as well. So they have options. I still think they're going to be okay for the regular season.
Yeah, it's funny because he brought up Dane Dunning, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I heard it correct that he hadn't given up a home run all year long, or so. I know Sonny Gray still hasn't, right? I thought Dane Dunning was in that group too, but I almost feel like they'd rather have him in the bullpen, and he might be one of those guys, and I know you're waiting on the worm to turn. Like, when does he start to look like Dane Dunning that we've seen before? But so far, so good. And you might be right. Maybe they can weather the storm and get through it with the starters they have. But ultimately, I still think they make a move. I think, we're talking about some of these other teams that have good pitching statistically, but I think people have reservations about them. The Orioles are one of those teams, the Rangers, the Reds were always that team with all these number twos throughout the course of the year before they started their rebuild. But yeah, I think everything Jake said is right. Like, they can still win this division, but it's weird because Houston's getting healthy at the right time, right?
For people who don't know, Ellie De La Cruz is the number one ranked prospect in Major League Baseball as of he became the number one prospect like 2 weeks ago, I think, or something. But he was always a really, really big time prospect. And it's a lazy comparison, but like, look, he does a lot of the things that O'Neal Cruz did really well when O'Neal Cruz got called up last year. Like, crazy height, weight, physical dimensions for playing, an infield position, throws the ball 900 miles per hour, hits balls out of stadiums, does things that people don't normally do when they play baseball. He's just different. And he's pretty awesome. And there's a ton of excitement about him. And we were waiting. Bettors were waiting. Reds fans were waiting. Baseball fans were waiting for him to get called up. And he got called up today. So I think something really interesting potentially here is on the verge of happening. And I actually wrote about this a few weeks ago because we knew for a very long time that this call-up was imminent. We just didn't know when it was going to happen, that the Reds were going to call him up to play. And I think the interesting thing is, okay, like, we know what his odds are to win NL Rookie of the Year. He has not played a game yet. He got bet a lot today. The consensus price in the market is down to like 11, 12 to 1 on him to win NL Rookie of the Year. And Corbin Carroll is a top 20 player in Major League Baseball basically right now, and he plays for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's a rookie. He is an overwhelming favorite. He's like minus 135 at BetMGM. That's actually pretty close to what he is everywhere. He's built a tremendous lead in this race to win NL Rookie of the Year that Ellie De La Cruz essentially has to track down by being awesome. And the really interesting thing to me will be if Ellie De La Cruz is awesome right out of the gate. If Ellie De La Cruz hits like a moonshot home run tonight, what is his price tomorrow to win this? There's like Corbin Carroll's way ahead, like a 2-win player right now, 2.5-win player. This is so interesting. Like, cause I think it's possible that like we see this happen again where like, not, he won't become the favorite, but where like, if he hits a moonshot home run, is he like 3-1 tomorrow to win NL Rookie of the Year? Like, is that what we're talking about? There's nobody in his way except for Corbin Carroll. So it's just a really interesting dynamic where someone could not have played, but there's so much excitement about that player that any hint of like amazing performance causes like even more of a massive price drop. Carroll's different. Like, he, from a WAR standpoint, he rates out as like a top 15 player in the league, like in that, not rookie, like top 15 player in the league. So like, can Ellie De La Cruz do that? Maybe, but like your time to bet Ellie De La, like I can't emphasize this enough. The time to bet him is over. Like, this was like an April conversation. Like, if you're just following his price, like you could try to get the last crumbs of this now, but like, this is it. Like, it's like, this is already, it's already too late. And I know, like, well, he's like 10-1. Be like, it's going to be really tough for him to catch Corbin Carroll. So, like, all that's really going to happen now is maybe the two of them end up having a 2-horse race to the end, or Carroll just wins going away. But, like, the time to, like, get the value out of Ellie seems like we're, like, way past that.